Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power of Man podcast. My name's Rory Paquette. You guys all know that. At this point, I hope you know that. My goodness, if someone else is sitting in this chair, please give me a call and let me know. Reach out at Power of Man podcast. Tell them, tell me that someone's sitting in my seat, folks. Thank you so much for everything that you have done lately. Ever since we made the move to 5 times a week, you folks have just shown up in droves. It's been amazing. I know I thank you at the beginning of every podcast, but that's because I am really and truly grateful to everything that you're doing. If you're not out there subscribing and liking and sharing and sending me all the DMs, folks, then I don't get to sit here in my chair and do what I'm doing. So thank you for making this dream a reality for me. And I'm going to do everything I can to keep bringing you powerful men with powerful messages, which is really the reason why you're all showing up here. It's because of God. It's because of these men. It's because of what you're doing. I'm just the guy delivering it. So I really appreciate you. And reach out to us at Power of Man Podcast on Instagram. Send us a note. Power of Man Podcast at gmail.com is our email. You guys know that, apparently, since I've been getting a lot more emails lately. Love you all. Keep bringing it. And you guys know what time it is. Now, brace yourselves. Okay. Yes, it is time to pay some bills. Yes, I'm going to take a sip of my preferred beverage. No, I do not have the red IU cup. My daughter-in-law asked me to use a cup that she got for me. Okay. There it is. That's right. Batman. So that's what we're doing today as a shout out to my daughter-in-law who actually loves the show and doesn't want anybody to know that she loves the show. So I'm going to out her on that since she's making me use the cup. And I think that's fair. So here we go, everybody. Let's take a sip of our preferred beverages together. Mm, my goodness. Fantastic stuff. Deep, dark, rich, bold, beautiful. Just like my wife. You guys all know what we're drinking. It's Freedom Hill Coffee. At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram, folks, go check them out. Look them up. Order some. Bring some into the house. They have all sorts of other merch, cups and hats and T-shirts also. Folks, they do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they support veterans, which is hugely important to us here at the Power of Man. You guys all know that veterans are very important to us, and they're very important to them too. And that's why we support them the way that we do. Folks, go check them out. Freedom Hill Coffee, at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Tell them the Power of Man sent you. I'm going to get another sip of this so I can keep up with this guy sitting across the table from me. All right. Here we go. All right, folks. This is a really, really interesting topic. I love what this gentleman is doing. I'm going to let him tell you all about it. Please welcome to our show the head of Students in Action, building pro-life leaders. Please welcome Stuart Kellogg. Stuart, how are you doing today, sir?
Good, Roy. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you. I love the setup you have back there. Folks who are only on the audio can't see. I mean,
I
you've
like
got the
that. Yeah.
professional thing with the screen, and yeah, you're looking good over
Well,
there.
trying to get the word out. So use the graphics. Absolutely.
That's right.
I paid Ken money to develop the logo, so let's show off Ken's work.
All right, Ken, thank you, man, because it looks really good. I had to say something about it. So that's beautiful. You folks who are watching on YouTube or Rumble or any of that stuff, you're going to see it, and it looks great. Let me go ahead and let's just do this. Stuart, I know we got a lot to cover and a lot to talk about today on a very important movement. But before we do that, let's just get started with tell our audience who is Stuart Kellogg? What are you about? What brings you here today?
Great. Yes, I'm a retired TV guy. I was in the business for 40 years, starting on air and then getting into news management and then eventually general management. I retired running the Hearst Television ABC affiliate in Jackson, Mississippi. That was my last position there. And that's the professional life. Met my wife, Beth, because I was a reporter and did a story at her school in Mobile, Alabama. And so that's how I met her. And she and our two children, we left Mobile in the mid 80s and have traveled all over the country and then retired and came back to this area. It's called Fairhope. It's across the bay from Mobile. So that's the professional side. The faith side, I grew up in a nominal Christian home. We went to church more than just twice a year, but it wasn't really a key part of our growing up. I got involved with the youth at church, but I finally saw someone was describing their life. I said, "Oh, that's me. I was a functional Unitarian."
Wow.
Because uh, we'd hear about Jesus twice a year. They talk about God and never the Holy Spirit or the Holy Ghost. Heaven forbid you talk about that. This is a mainline Presbyterian church in the 60s and the 70s. And so I moved from New York. I went to Syracuse University the Newhouse School, and I was working in television at the time there, and I just wanted to go south, and I moved to Mobile, Alabama, from Syracuse, New York, in the late '70s. And I'm here in Mobile in the Bible Belt, and people are talking about a relationship with Jesus. Oh, God. It was truly a different language. I just didn't understand. And what was wonderful is meeting people who knew that and didn't hold that against me. And I can tell you that spring day in 1978, by myself, in my apartment, getting on my knees and trusting Christ with my life. And that was the period. Now I was down here going to a mainline Presbyterian church. I remember telling the pastor, and his response was, "That's nice." Uh, so it was, even to some now, it's a little different. And when I told my family, they didn't understand. So, but that was the start of the journey 46, 47 years ago, but it was a slow one. And it wasn't until getting to Jackson, Mississippi, and I had moved all over the country with Beth in the TV business. That's part of what the business is. And I had my dream job finally running a TV station. And there in Jackson, getting involved in small groups. I'd never been involved in small groups. Praying out loud, that was different. So, and then this whole idea of this is more than something we do on Sunday.
Mm.
This is, if we're called to trust in Christ, it really means giving our life and understanding that. And at the time, going to a Methodist church, and it was this certainly evangelical to an extent, but it was when talking to a friend of mine, I said, this John Wesley, who never left the Church of England, but is the founder of the Methodist Church. I said, I'm in a Methodist church, don't know about him. And a friend of mine who we had as a commentator on our TV station, it was a seminary professor, and he brought me 7 books for lunch. I can still remember, and I just devoured them. And I said, "This is exciting." And so I ended up going to seminary while I was running the station. I then studied under Chuck Colson, who ran the Colson Center for Christian Worldview. So getting this idea of not only your faith, but it involves everything you do and how you look at every topic. And so since then, I've been teaching and being a part of that, and retired 10 years ago, and then have gone into ministry full time. I've been doing ministry while working, business ministry. I started a prison ministry and different teachings, but it's really been in the last 10 years, if you will, doing it full time, even though it's not actually full time, but doing several projects during this time. And this new one, the latest, is Students in Action Building Pro-Life Leaders. So I hope that makes sense and gives you a sense of who I am and why I'm here.
Absolutely, absolutely. You said you're not doing this full time. You seem to be doing an awful lot for somebody who's not doing it full time.
Yeah, well, I do other things too. Yeah, but it's not. But I am retired, and but I also teach. And as I said, I was just called to this, and we can talk about that in a little bit. Kind of a unique stand, but it's an opportunity too, and it's really helped me because I know your whole focus is on men, empowering men, strengthening men. We see what's going on in the culture, and
Absolutely.
this pro-life issue does touch on that. So that's why I think it's a nice match for us to chat about.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. You were just getting ready to talk about something though. Why you cut yourself off?
Oh, well, I was I'll tell you my lawnmower story. How's this,
Okay,
right?
yeah,
The
sure.
guys do lawns, all right?
Hey,
They'll
we
appreciate.
have time. It's all right. Go ahead, tell me.
Well, so I'll back up a little bit. Middle of COVID, we had moved here. We had, after retiring, moved to Georgia to take care of my wife's dad. And after he passed, we moved back here to the Gulf Coast. And then COVID hit. And it just struck me as I was watching how different churches, focusing on churches, were reacting to it and how leaders were reacting. Some were leaning into it, saying this is an opportunity. Others were what I call turtle churches, hunkering down. So I started writing about it, and then I started this post-COVID church as a blog, and then podcasts, and then I ended up writing a book, The Post-COVID Church. And that went on for several years, just looking at different ways that this whole challenge has, in some cases, strengthened the church, and in some cases, weakened the church. And that was fascinating. But now we're a year and a half ago, and I'm looking at the numbers of the podcast and the book, and my wife says people are so sick of anything with the word COVID in it. We're here, and I said, you're right. And so I'm doing my lawn. This is November 2023, and we still cut the lawn down here on the Gulf Coast in November, by the way, Rory. I know you've long gone by November. You're shoveling.
You got it.
But I'm cutting the lawn and I'm thinking through the final blog I'm going to write. And Ohio has just put the right to abortion in the Constitution, pretty red state.
Mhm.
And so this is 0 for 5 after Roe got turned over. 0 for 5 at that point. And I'm thinking through my blog and what the church needs to do. And I didn't hear a voice, but I sensed, and I know it's the Holy Spirit saying, "What are you doing?" Well, Beth and I give to the local pregnancy center. I just gave a speech a little bit ago about pro-life. I talk about it. And then I sensed him say, "What are you doing?" And I finished the yard and I went in and I filled out an application to work at a local pregnancy center. It took about an hour and a half, very in-depth. They don't just take anyone. Your story,
Hmm.
where you are on the walk, an interview process, they're very serious about that. To work with men. About a third of the women who come in for pregnancy tests bring the fathers. And so they want to have people there working with the men. And I did that. And then I told this story to a fellow in my small group. We've been in a small group together for 14 years and told him my lawnmower story. And he said, "You need to put a program together. You need to put a program because it's not getting done." And with my background in writing and television, and so I started and I put together what is now Students in Action, Building Pro-Life Leaders, and ran it at our church as a pilot with 8 students, high school students, had some adults watching, connected with the pregnancy center. So they're taught about worldview, how that's important and how we act in the Christian perspective, taught about pro-life, taught about abortion, the history of it, and taught how to defend the pro-life issue, how to engage. So it's a 5 modules, a 5 part, and then did hands-on projects with the local pregnancy center. And so after the pilot, made some tweaks and have just released it on the website, prolifeleaders.net, and it's there for people to look at and take and look at all the modules. They don't know me from Adam. So you can read everything that's written. It's right there. You'll see it's very orthodox, small orthodox pro-life issues. The only cost is if ordering the books and getting them shipped, from the printer. That's it. I get nothing out of this, and I've enjoyed Beth and I have my wife. She was in charge of the hands-on projects, just putting it together. And so our hope is that churches and Christian schools will look at it and maybe say, "Look, this is an out of the box. It's all there. PowerPoint, videos, teaching material, all there, and it can get people engaged." So that's how I got into this program by being challenged, I believe, by the Holy Spirit saying, "What are you doing? And what are you doing besides talking about it?" So
There's a lot there. I'm glad I pressed you on that because there's a ton there, man. There's a
thank
lot.
you.
And thank you for sharing that story. When you're called, you answer, and that's that. But it's a blessing that you recognize that. And, then all the pieces always fall into place. A friend, goes, "Hey, brother, you got to make this thing." So I love the story. It fits, absolutely tracks the way these narratives go. Um, the the students in action, you've decided to focus on students in this. Um, the thinking is maybe get to them while they're younger before they've sort of been poisoned by the world. I'm curious. I mean, as opposed to
Yes.
make it a big mainstream thing, you've particularly gone to student thought. So,
And I'm down here in the Bible Belt. Okay, we're in Alabama, and I'm in a pretty good sized church, a couple thousand,
okay.
and good kids ministry. But look, Rory, they're in the bubble. They're in the bubble in the culture. And I say, they feel good in the church and they go to the church. And as I say, they go to their first philosophy class at Auburn and their head gets blown up. And
Right.
how do they answer?
Yeah.
Look in the Bible. I don't believe, and I remember Chuck Colson telling us that answer. You can't just tell them, "Well, it's in the Bible." They'll say, "I don't believe in the Bible. What else you got?" So
Yeah.
you have to be able to engage. And that's what the numbers when kids leave, and for lots of reasons, the freedom, the drug, sex, rock and roll. But A lot of it is they're being challenged like they've never been challenged, and they don't have the answers. And my critique, the church has not done a good enough job preparing to have the answers. And so I got to tell you, I had adults sit through the program just to give me feedback and all. Most adults can take this program and they'll learn a lot of stuff too, because unfortunately, this is not a pro-life nation. You've got 2 out of 3, or 3 out of 4, depends on the survey, believe abortion should be legal at some point. It's a political loser. Yeah, you know that.
Sure.
We've gone from, John Stone Street puts it so well, we've gone from a pro-choice, pro-life two parties to a pro-abortion, pro-choice two parties. I mean, that's just the reality. And so we've got to get these kids understanding and at least being able to engage and understand what life is. And that ties right in, especially with the men being men and understanding the whole heart of this is Imago Dei. We are all made in the image of God. And so what does that mean and how we live? So that was what targeting the students, although there's info here that I think a lot of people will enjoy because it's using such information such as from Scott Klusendorf, who's one of the foremost experts on pro-life. And so it's using that material in such a way that I think it's pretty accessible.
Great. Unfortunately, I don't disagree with anything you just said. Because yeah, I mean, anyone who's watching the landscape and has been counting the carnage, for a while, it's been very obvious what's been happening. But I totally agree. It's a political loser for sure. One of the two sides had nothing to run on except that. So, it was interesting. But I'm very intrigued with the program, the way it's come up. Now, when did you come up with this? You may have told me, and if I missed it, please accept
Yeah,
my
it was,
apologies.
the seed came while I was cutting the yard 18 months ago. So,
18 months ago.
and,
Okay.
and so then started the process of about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, writing, putting all the material together, and then starting. I went to our church. Originally, there was going to be 3 churches together, and a couple of them dropped out at the last minute. So it was just our church with 8 students, and that started the first week in August a year ago. 5 straight weeks, and then the hands-on projects, and so it was done by the end of the year. So that's why I've been tweaking and making the changes and building the website. I've done all that and making videos and getting all the pieces together, if you will. And so now I have just launched it just a couple weeks ago.
Okay. So you've launched a program, which I have had a chance to look at on the website, and it is quite good. And I applaud you
Thank you.
for what you've put together. The program, though, what I was curious about, has it launched in practice at this point?
The only one that's gone through is the pilot. So, and
Right.
to be fair, it's now just a couple weeks out there. And as a friend of mine, when I sent it to a group of folks who I've been keeping updated for the last year and a half, just to
Mhm.
say, hey, here it is. And they helped me. I made some tweaks on the website and that sort of thing. And as one of my friends told me, he said, wow, this is a commitment. I don't know how many kids are going to make this commitment. So the reality is that it's going to take and the approach is to find those people in the church or in the Christian school who really have a heart for this issue and say, let me run it as a pilot. Give me 12 kids in my church.
Mhm.
Let me try it and then spread. That's finally come to me in the last couple of weeks. So no one's done it yet, but hopefully, and we're getting some good traffic to the website, a little under 300, but in the first 10 days. But so people are looking and seeing. So now how can we get folks to say, yeah, this is important and it's worth trying now?
First of all, let me just say thank you again. You told me this was the first podcast you'd come on, and I appreciate that. But thank you for coming here at the beginning of your movement here, because we've spent a long time cultivating a lot of people on this podcast, and we reach a lot of folks, and that has taken a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and belief. And I'm loving the fact that we get to help at the beginning of this to try and get the word out. I absolutely love that. So I'm with you, just so you know, on board 100%.
Thank you, Roy.
There are a lot of people who listen to this who may be interested, and that's why I wanted to ask you that question. Everything starts somewhere. And so I wanted to kind of, as I was looking at the website, I was talking to my wife earlier, about this particular interview coming up. And I said, this is intriguing. I said, I don't know if it's in practice anywhere or not, but what it looks like is almost a form of discipleship that we're trying to put together. And we need to find people on a local basis who are willing to jump in. And then you just said all that, and I'm going, I got it right.
We're on the right page. Yeah. Because it is a commitment and it is a discipleship and it's an issue that's been so torn. I mean, just look at it. I've got a quote in the book from Planned Parenthood in 1962. And so it was a question and answer, and it said, is abortion birth control? And the answer, this is in 1962, was absolutely not. Abortion kills the child. And they won't even admit that now. I mean, so that, and it's a fact that, so we've gone from that to it's healthcare. I mean, the twisting of words, and so this is in the water. And I'll give you an example. As I mentioned, I deal with men. Most of them are young men, teens to mid-20s, almost all the men who come in with their girlfriends, very rarely, I believe two have been married, who are pregnant. And I'll tell you a common theme, and it is it's called the focus method that the Women's Care Medical Center uses, and we're trained in it. And we give information about the three options: abortion, adoption, and parenting. It's just facts. It's just facts. And we do the sonograms, we do the follow-up. Obviously, our issue is life, but we want them to trust us with the facts. And so the process is we start with the man and just, how did you find out about us? And it's scripted in this way. And usually when we talk about options, I can't tell you, Ray, how many times the young men, and I could tell by their earlier answers, they want a parent. They're against abortion, their parents are. And then I'll ask a question about it, about the mom. And the answer, how many times, is, look, I'm against it, but she's the mother. So if she decides, that's okay to have an abortion. And we're not scripted to say, dude, you're half the problem. You're half the, but we don't. Again, we're building relationships on that. But I can't, and that's the culture has taught them that. And most of these people, by the way, have been in church when they were young. Almost all of them no longer go. The pattern is very similar, but they know, and they're even saying, I don't want it, but she's the mama. And if that's her decision, that's her decision. And the culture said that all right. And here's the other thing, and I get to walk away without a child to support for 18 years. I mean, so there's a lot of stuff going on, but it's this idea that that is the answer. It's the woman's body, it's her decision. Well, it's more than that. And and men have to face up to that. Though I did 2 weeks ago. I love this one answer from a fella, and we were talking, and again, he's working, and they're not married, but he said, it's time for me to put my big boy pants on. I'm going to be a dad. And we also, and what we do, I then signed him up because we do parenting classes. For the women, it's a separate, and for the men, and you'll love this. So the women, and when they go through the 6-part course that they have, they get a baby seat, Lynette, clothes. It's a wonderful, we make a little graduation. The men's program is called Builders, and it's all around the theme of building. And it's, okay, you got to have a plan. This is about being a father and being a husband. You got to have a plan. You have to have a foundation. You have to have level. It's all. And so when they graduate, they get a toolbox full of tools, a couple $100 full of tools. And so it's just this, but I loved his answer. And I quoted that down. It's time for me to put my big boy pants on. I'm ready to be a dad. It's not going to be that easy, but we're going to help you walk that way. And by the way, Roy, that was one of the early issues. I remember this when Roe got instituted and the pro-life movement was pushing, and the answer was, yeah, you care about the baby until they're born, and then you don't care. And you know what? There was some truth to that. I'm talking late 70s, early 80s. And that's why, such as Women's Care Medical Center, where I work, no, we're connecting you with churches. We are here. They come back with their children. No, this is a child made in the image of God, and we're going to do all we can to help
Yeah.
mom, dad, and baby.
I love that part because without that support, I mean, they're just adrift, and oh, great, now I have to keep this, and now I have no idea what to do, and there's no one to help me. And that just adds even more to, I don't want to have this anymore. So, I mean, I totally get it. Without the support, I mean, the fight is lost,
Mhm.
and has been. We've been losing for a long time. I'm very intrigued, and I knew I would be as soon as we started talking about this, with the role of the young men in this particular process. We've been very blessed here on our show to have a swelling, growing group of young men who are the young lions that are just out there spreading the word, proclaiming Jesus loudly, being very responsible. They're not out there to party and womanize. They're building lives. It's really been amazing to watch that movement, but I'm not naive enough to think even for a minute that that's the majority. It's so cool to watch because you don't get to see it
Yes.
that often.
It's
So
a remnant, but that's okay.
there you go.
I think God uses remnants, hasn't he? Isn't there a book that has something about that? Anyway, it
Okay.
starts with a P. So.
I mean, that's a whole other podcast now. I can only cover so much in 45 minutes here, bro. So, um, but when these men come in, I can only imagine that they're scared. Okay, that they don't have a faith base mostly to back them up anyway. Are they? One of the questions that pops into my head is: Are they getting any support at all from their families? Or are their families sort of casting them adrift as well as what happens to the moms?
The sense I get, and we do get into that, and one of the things that we do after is talking about the importance of spiritual health. And I always ask the question, is it okay if we have a spiritual discussion? I've had one say no, he was a Muslim, and that's fine. They've got all the information, but everyone else, yeah, absolutely. Almost, as I mentioned, most, yeah, they know something about the Bible and they went as a kid, but they don't anymore. You won't be shocked. Most are from split families.
Okay.
Most the mom and dad divorced, and most have at least one. There's a mom there is an adult in there within them and their girlfriend's family. So I've never been with someone who had absolutely nobody. But as you dig a little deeper, there's usually dysfunction there too. So yeah, it's there, but how much real grounding and help is there, which
Right.
is what we're trying to help a little bit with.
So there's a complete lack of leadership going on at all until they
Correct.
walk in the door to see you folks. And then you are, of course, limited and hamstrung to what you can actually say or do or try to help them with.
Yeah, and I want to say, Ham, so it's a system in which we build, and it's clear that we want to protect life and to support it. And once we get, this is the good news, once we get into that, and this is like anything else, into the relationship, and for example, they start the parenting class, then we're talking all faith and how to be a man and how to be a husband and how to be a better father. And so now we're really getting into these pieces, but boy, so much is a bit foreign. And I'll tell you, one of the neat things, Corey, we always give them an exit survey. The women too, they get one. Hey, how are we doing? You know, and I can't tell you how many say, just thanks for listening. I mean, the fact that I'm sitting there, the different men, we've got four offices, but just the fact that somebody cared enough to sit down, give me some water and ask about my life. And that's out there. And Corey, I know you're young men who you're seeing. That's step one, but that's a big step. Somebody cares enough. I mean, how many times have you been to a cocktail party in the neighborhood and does anybody ask you anything? No, they tell you, right? Who asks? So just having people ask, and that's one of the things in part the final module of ours. And I use a lot from Greg Kokel, who wrote Tactics and the follow-up Street Smarts. And a lot of it is how to engage with folks about faith, and in this case, pro-life, but so much of it is just listening and just asking the questions and following up, and how many doors that opens, and especially with young men, because too often they've been told just to shut up. Like in this case, shut up. It's my body, my choice. You got nothing to do with this. Oh, really?
Right.
You wouldn't be pregnant if it weren't for me. No, I do have something to do with this.
Yeah, I've heard all the arguments on both sides that I'm sure you have too, in terms of like who gets to say what and everything else. So it's never going to be an easy answer, that's for sure.
No.
And this is never an easy situation. either. It needs to be taken as seriously as you folks are taking it. Again, I applaud you for what you're doing. The students in action that you've put together here, do you have anybody behind you guys, a church or an organization, or is this an
Yeah.
independent movement where you're looking for support? And the reason I ask is because I want our listeners to know what you need to keep this moving.
Thank you. Yes, and I'm part of a group called the Fellowship of the Alba, and it's a men's group. We're all on Zoom from around the country, Celtic Christian background, and they've been very supportive. And as I wrote to them when I just last week sent them the link and said, I've been yakking about this on our, couple of weeks. Here it is. Take a look. And I obviously asked for prayers for it, but I also asked for, and since you asked, I'm going to ask your folks. Boy, I'd love to have one or two or three people who said, boy, this really is a movement. Let me get with you, Stuart. Help me, disciple me about this because you put it together and let me go forward. And that's the model. There is nobody but Beth, my wife, and me. That's it. There is no group. You said, head of the organization. Well, the organization's us. So, but that's what I love. You and I've been in enough organizations to know what happens. So it's great to have this flexibility and and to say absolutely. And that's why, and I'll throw this out, info@prolifeleaders.net goes right to me. And you can also on the website, there's a way to write. And that's one of the items I mentioned there. I'm willing to mentor others. I'll get with you and talk to you about here's what I did, but you know what? Change it. Yes, it's copyrighted. I copyrighted it, but I don't care. Take it. And if you just want to try it with two or three of you, and so don't want to print a couple dozen because it's small, just download it. It's there. Download it. There's no issue. And the PowerPoints are there with the videos. So, I mean, it's all encompassing. But you may decide, we don't have room for five, but can you tell me maybe the two or three? Absolutely. Let's talk about that and try it. Anything's a plus if you get the word out and keep it focused on truth and keep it focused on what is biblically centered. That's the key part.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. I'm telling you, this is the very beginning of your journey, brother.
It
And
is.
wow, I mean, I know right now it probably looks like you're just looking right up the mountain, man. But you were chosen for this for a reason. So make sure you stay the course. And people are coming into your life right now as we speak that are going to help you with this. I absolutely know that.
Well,
So,
I
and I'm
appreciate, and that does help. And my wife gave me a similar buck up this morning because it is a bit frustrating, and because of those I've sent out, and I said, boy, I think you'd at least respond or do something with it, and she said, perspective and the whole idea that this is big and the timeline is big. There's no end to this. We continue as a post Christian nation, and this issue is just going to get pushed back and back and back. And the more it does, and the more what we have now with the abortion, you used to have kind of like pornography. You used to have to go to the theater, right? And now you don't. And look what's happening to pornography. Well, abortion used to have to go to an abortion clinic. Well, you don't now. Over half are at home by pills. And it was rushed into being approved. It's a two-pill process. A recent study just came out showing the first pill that you take, which starves the baby, is 20 times more negative side effects than the original FDA reported. Just came out 3 weeks ago. This is a serious stuff. And the second pill you then take 48 hours later aborts the baby. And they're saying it's okay to do at home. And of course, you have hemorrhaging and blood. And this was rushed through in the last administration to get it out there. And that's where half the abortions are. And they're being done at home. And I'll tell you, one of the tropes out there is that it's safer than Tylenol. Well, who would even think that? It's absolutely not true. But you say it enough and you want to believe it. And we've got, and so this is it's a multi-front war. But here's an interesting point too, Roy. The company behind the two pill regiment is they've had split offs, but if you go back to the core, it's the same company that provided the gas for the concentration camps in Nazi Germany. So
Well, that's not something you're going to see on the nightly news headline.
no,
No, that's never going to come up. Yeah.
but it's part of it. In fact, I'm going to go right here because people may say that's not true. And so I'm going to tell you exactly what the company is. It's IG Farben Chemical Company created the gas used in the concentration, and the subsidiary was controlled by a French company that developed the RU-46 chemical abortion. So, but death is death.
Yeah.
Death is death. Are you killing an 80-year-old man or a 12-year-old girl in a concentration camp or a 6-week-old baby in the uterus? Tell me what the difference is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it makes sense that that company would do that, wouldn't
It does. Yeah. They didn't care about it before. They don't care about it now. And frankly, most companies don't care
it?
anyway.
Business.
So
And
it's,
they're trying to loosen the restrictions on those. And here's the big deal. And I'll tell you just a little story. And again, down here in Baldwin County, Alabama, we just had our very first at our women's care. If you take that first pill, and what it does is starves the baby. If you go within 12 or 24 hours and change your mind, there's a medical procedure, progesterone, which floods it and gives more nourishment to the baby. And just about, we just had our first baby born from a reversal.
oh, wow.
She came in. She came in about 7, 8 months ago, and so she took the first pill, and then she called an 800 number, and it knew where she was, and they saw her the next morning. Uh, the doctor gave it, and she was just born.
Wow.
And I can tell you, California is trying to make it illegal for pregnancy centers to share that information with women, that it is reversible. There is a fight with the Attorney General. There is a push to make this a one pill. Why? And this is the thing. All right, Senator Warren, the others, I understand. Okay, I don't agree with you, but I understand pro-choice. Why would you stand in the way of a woman who said, I want my baby? And why? That's even more evil. Why
Yeah.
why would you do why do you think that's bad? Well, she's been talked into it. No, no. We think it's the Holy Spirit, but it's called the conscience.
Hmm.
She woke up and said, this is wrong. And
Yeah.
so this you talk about evil, this gets even more. And truly, they are trying to do that in California, make that illegal. So they're making it illegal to tell the truth, is that you can reverse it. I mean, that's how, what did Humpty Dumpty say? Truth is what I say it is. I don't know. I've got the quote somewhere, but or Goebbels in World War II will keep the Nazi theme going. Tell a lie often enough, and it becomes the truth.
Absolutely. Well, we've been watching that for years in every other venue. So
And
it,
and
yeah.
and no political party owns that, by the
Oh, no, 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 no.
way. So, but when we're talking about this, yeah,
Yeah, when it comes to politics, I think a lot of us are borderline agnostic. We're like, you know what? I don't want to be part of any of it. Just fix it or leave. So yeah, it's gotten very ugly. But um, with this movement that you have going, um, I let me just say first that on this show you always have the right to say, yeah, I'd rather not answer that question. Okay, you always have that right, and I respect that with anyone. Um, I'm curious on this one. The You're going to have a fight on your hands. I mean, this is just coming out, and it's coming out on a big podcast, but you're not going to have a fight on your hands with my listeners. That's good information to get it out there, but it is not going to take long, brother, for this stuff to people to know you're talking about this. And if it picks up steam, they're going to come at you. And I guess my question is, number one, have you thought of it? Because I'm sure you have, but have you really thought about that? And number two, are you ready for that?
Number two, I don't know if I'm ready for it. Number one, I've thought of it, but I've just said I feel called, and all I'm doing is sharing the truth. There's nothing in this material that isn't factual. And so we'll see what happens. I Unfortunately, the other side has the wind at their sails, as far as, I mean, we're over 1 million abortions now in the nation. It's up. It's
Yeah,
up since Roe was overturned.
sure.
And that's not a real number because people get the pills and they get them illegal. Alabama, just to give you an example, we are as pro-life as you get. There are very few exceptions. But the estimate from the Kaiser, so it's not some pro-life group, the Kaiser Foundation is that there were 5,000 abortions in Alabama. Well, how's that happen? Well, do the math. You get it. No, it's illegal to send it here. That doesn't matter. You can get those pills in. In fact, when you talk about evil, Wall Street Journal wrote an article this about 6 months ago. They have pill packing parties in Massachusetts in which they pack abortion pills to send to pro-life states, including Alabama. They have the women across and they make them in little boxes to send them illegally to women so that they can have their abortions where it's illegal. Right? So that's the kind of thing you're up against. And to at least talk the truth, I guess there could be blowback. But I'll tell you, Roy, there's already been blowback internally. I'm not going to go into a lot of specifics. I will say, though, that I was teaching a worldview. This is before the project came out, but I was teaching a worldview project for a confirmation class for a church that nowhere near where I live. I was doing it in Zoom, and I was going to do one in person when I was there. And I mentioned abortion as an example uh, of counter to God's word. And some of the parents freaked out and went to the parent, and I got fired from number two, from the second one. So
Wow.
this is a church. This is what evangelical, that may be stretching it, but it's certainly a church that was willing to have me talk about authority of Scripture and all these basic parts. And I use that as an example. And a couple parents went nuts, and I got fired, which that so yeah, the others out there are mad, but we got a big enough fight in the tent, in the Christian tent. If we can take care of that, that would be a step, which is part of what this is about, getting folks
Yeah,
to think about.
beyond me, just beyond me. You know what I mean? But I'm not surprised to hear that, to be honest, because we are always our worst enemies over here. So, wow, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that, but you're already getting it, and you're barely out of the gate. So, um,
Yeah, right, exactly.
wow, just wow. Yeah, listen. I admire the heck out of what you're doing and out of you for being willing to take the bullet because y- I don't. I'm 55 years old. I've been around the block a few times. I haven't seen anything like this come out. So is this, I mean, that cutting edge, or has this been tried before where,
Well, and
and it hasn't
that's what my
worked? Or
friend, yeah, I don't. That's what my friend Mark in our small group said when I shared with him my lawnmower story the next day, and he said, "You got to put this together, and we need this in there because I don't see it." And I got to tell you, it's not something that is spoken a lot, even in the most evangelical, or maybe once a year during Sanctity of Life. It's not part of the DNA, if you will, of most churches. And so having an out of the box, and the whole idea that he helped me think is make it as simple as possible. You don't have to think, here it is. You can tweak it, but it's all here. And it's short, but it's pretty in depth. I had a former college professor who now runs a Christian school, and he's saying, "Boy, you're getting into worldview and some deeper stuff." And I said, "Yeah." So that's what I was saying. It's real. It's meaty. It's not these real simple things, but this is a meaty topic. You've got to be able to delve in and talk about it. And I think this is unique in this way. Not that there aren't lots of books, and I reference the books and I say, read these books, and I give them, this isn't all my stuff. I'm sharing the best of that people have, but putting it in a way that is just very actionable and short. And most of the modules are about when I did the pilot, each module was an hour total from coming in and everybody saying hello and updates to the guts to the Q&A. So the actual teaching materials like 35 minutes. So it's pretty dense, but it's not something that's hours and hours, although there are 5 different modules.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that's great. Wow. I'm blown away by so many things that are going on right now. I looked it up and I had an idea. Was on your website. I checked these things out, but the more I'm thinking about like where this movement is right now, it's honestly, it's getting my hackles up. I'm like, I feel like I'm getting ready for a fight here or something. This is really cool what you're putting together, and if I can use my son's vernacular, I guess but you definitely need you need soldiers out there doing this
Yeah.
for you for sure. But I mean, you're one of the lions, man. You're out there and you're fighting for this to get out and to literally save lives. This is just kind of nuts. Folks, if you're listening to this right now, Stuart needs some help. Stuart needs some soldiers in this fight in a big way, and he needs more people to step up and be lions for him in this cause that are willing to, step out there and proclaim their faith and say, "Look, there's right and wrong, and this is right." And we need to get into the minds of our young people a whole lot more than we have. And the other thing is that I think of these young guys that I deal with, and I believe just about every one of these guys that I'm thinking of would agree with everything that's in there, but they're not armed with this right now. And so we need to get it into their hands because there is a huge movement that I'm seeing more and more and more of young lions who are coming. And the problem is there's not enough old lions leading the way and knocking down the wall first. You know, these young guys should not have to go through that wall first and get bloody. That should be our job. And there's not enough of us doing that so that they can come behind us armed with stuff like this, and really make a difference. I really applaud you that you're out there doing that.
Well,
It's
thank you.
amazing.
And thank you for calling for the soldiers. I love it. I love,
Yeah.
will you,
It's
yeah,
wow.
will you be a colonel in the army?
Oh,
So,
absolutely. I'm not even, I will commit right now that I'll help you with this, period.
thank you so much.
I've already looked at it. So we've got to talk about some logistics, but I've
Yeah.
got another whole
Thank you.
movement that I'm starting that goes hand in hand with this one that I'll tell you about off the air. Yeah, that's right. You folks don't get to hear about it in this podcast. Sorry. Only because I don't know when this is coming out. So let me tease my audience a little.
There you go.
It's May 31st right now. By the time you hear this podcast, you will know about the movement. So you'll know that I'm just kind of messing around with you. But I can't take that chance either because I'm going to try and bump Stewart up here a little bit in the rotation
Well, thank you.
and get him in there because this is an important message. But let's just say that by the time you guys hear this podcast, you will know what it means when I say we need to wake up the lions, and we'll move forward from there. Um, and right now, all of the guys who are following me that already know this are going, "Man, you were talking about this back then. You didn't tell me." So it's going to be awesome. But and I'll talk to you some more off the air if you have a minute. Appreciate that, Stuart.
Absolutely.
Stuart, listen, we've unpacked a ton. We've brought a whole lot out here. You were in for a fight, my friend, and I am absolutely going to take some punches with you. This is really important. Love what you're doing. I'm going to give you the floor, though, for a moment or two here, because I know there's something else that we may have missed just because we really got into talking about this. Is there anything that I didn't ask you? Is there anything we talked about and maybe you want to drive home a little more or something you want to leave with the audience? And the floor is yours for the next few minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to take from our pastor, Dr. Eric Hankins, who very pro-life and engaged in this, and he's the first pastor. I've moved around a lot in a lot of churches, who I have never heard him give a pro-life talk ever where he hasn't also said, the blood of Christ covers all sins. And there are people who are listening to me right now who have had an abortion, have facilitated an abortion. And that has just struck with me. And that idea of one, Christ's blood does cover all sin, but two, to recognize and to remember, and this is a key part of it, that who you are talking to may have been very involved in an abortion, but that doesn't mean their lives can't change. And I think that's something, and that's why, for example, I have an issue with showing the graphics of, aborted fetuses. And I understand the argument on why that gets the attention. But for a woman who's been through that, and
Mm.
is getting their life together who someone may not know. Anyway, I'm not going to have that argument, but the point being, uh, as Dr. Hankins reminds, I like to bring up, you never know in this issue where there isn't someone out there who has been hurt, and uh, I have found that out after the fact, and that's important. And I think the other thing, Roy, and I don't think it matters what the issue, though we're talking pro-life. I think too much of the church today, and I'm talking about the evangelical, forget the crazy church man, let's just stick right in the tent, okay? The evangelical, Bible believing, check all the boxes, is focused so much on getting those to put their trust in Christ, how important that is, and going to heaven, important it is, and this in-between thing called life, where the kingdom is now, whatever. I got my ticket punched. I, I don't see that's how Jesus called us to live. And so in this in between life, let's join and do pro-life or do something else. I don't think the church gets engaged enough, and there's enough hurt out there, and we need to be a beacon on this or any other issue. People say, what is it about those people? Kind of like the early church. They were the ones who were helping those who had the plague. They didn't run into the cities. They were helping. They were taking the babies off the garbage dump because that's how abortion was done in the Roman Empire. If you didn't want the baby, usually a girl, you threw on a garbage dump. Who are these people who are taking babies off the garbage dump and bringing them home and raising them? That's what we need to be. So those are the two main points, and it's a great opportunity. The field is white. Let's go.
I love your attitude going into this. I really do. And it's going to take that, for you to keep moving forward. So, brother, all the power to you in the whole world
Thank you.
in this movement. Love it. And folks, I've said before, we need lions on this one. So, look him up. The website. Let me make sure I have the website right, and I'm going to put it in the show notes, even if I say it wrong here.
Thank
But
you.
it's where are we at here? Da, da, da. I just had it, and now I'm losing my mind. There it is. Pro Life Leaders with an S .net.
Net, correct.
All right, I got it right, and
You
that's
got
good.
it
But
right.
it
And
will be
then
in
for
the
the
show notes.
email, info@prolifeleaders.net.
There we go.
That'll be an email. Go right to me.
Info at prolifeleaders.net, and you can get right to Stuart. Okay, so that's perfect. Folks, use this stuff. It's going to be in the show notes, like I said, and look it up. If you're even curious about it, do what I did. Go to the website. Just look it up. It takes just a couple minutes to get an idea of what we're talking about here. And, don't just take our word for it. Do your own research. Look at this stuff, and you're going to understand that it's not just two guys sitting here with an axe to grind. This is real. And this is where evil's really, really hitting us, folks. And we gotta wake up. Gotta wake up at some point. Stuart, thank you so much for coming today,
Thank
bringing
you,
this,
Roger.
coming in.
Thank
I
you.
I love it. I mean, really and truly, thank you for sharing everything you did.
And I just looked up and realized how much time we give. It just flew by. So thank you for that. That's how it's supposed to be.
That's
Have a
exactly how it's supposed
coffee
to
and
go.
talk.
I appreciate you very much. Thank you, sir. Uh, Folks, this has been another incredible episode of the Power Man podcast. The reason that we bring powerful men like this with powerful visions, powerful information, talking about powerful topics like we are today is because we completely support you in your mission to become a better protector, a better provider, a better leader tomorrow than you are today, to become a better man, a better husband, a better father than you are today. Folks, the reason we want that for you is because you have value. And, so do these unborn. They have value too. Folks, at some point, you just have to believe it. Until next time.